Yeah. Hello. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, WeatherBrains episode number 538, the pre-show, May 9th, 2016. So, Kevin, the floor belongs to you.
I'm going to make James's head explode. So that sound effect you hear is duct tape wrapping around his head. I learned of a...
I don't have that sound effect, but I've got this one. There you go.
Okay, there. Keep it handy. I learned of a television station, I won't say where. I learned of their severe weather tornado cut-in policy. And it's a 3-tiered policy on tornado warnings. If it is in a low populated outlying area, they are allowed to go in on commercials. If it is a medium populated, somewhat closer in county or area, they are allowed to break into programming, but only for a short period of time. And then if it's a tornado warning in the metro area, then they're allowed to go on continuously.
That sucks. That is everything that is wrong.
Yes.
That is the written policy.
So what jabroni came up with this?
I don't know.
What company? Come on, say it.
That I might be able to determine. Let me see.
By the way, we've got Rick, who obviously is out tonight. He's the WCM in Norman, Oklahoma, and obviously he's got storm survey stuff to do. They've had a big tornado day today. Bill Murray is dining with hotel people or something.
Hotel takeover.
Yes, what is that? What he didn't respond to my question. What does that mean?
I don't know.
That he was participating in a hotel takeover.
I could just see him storming a hotel with, grenades and tear gas. And,
my question was, it was like a sit-in with a bunch of hippies or something.
Yeah, that'd be good. So Dr. John, I think, is out.
This is a small broadcaster.
Oh, just some. I still want a name and I want to talk to these guys.
The station that doesn't care for your life if you live in the boonies.
All right, we've got Eric Berger coming on the show. Let's see if I can bring him in. RIC. Eric Berger. Eric Fisher. Boy, there are a lot of Eric Bergers. Wow. Which one do I choose? Goodness, there's a lot of Eric Bergers.
The right one. You better choose the right one. Choose wisely.
Wow. So let me see if I can try. I'll try his email address I've got here. He's with Ars Technica. Let's try this and see if anything happens. No. His Google account is not related to that address.
According to the email that he has a arstechnica.com email address.
Yeah, I'd loaded that. You can invite people by email address, and that one did not work.
Oh, okay.
So he added me.
He added you.
Circle. I'm not so sure that's going to help.
Nate, you missed it. I made James's head explode.
No, you didn't. It's right there.
I was telling him about the tornado policy that I just learned at an unnamed television station.
I love those unnamed television stations. Those are great.
It's a 3-tiered tornado warning policy.
Okay. Go
if
on.
it's a far out, low populated area, they're allowed to just break in temporarily over a commercial break.
Because rural lives don't matter.
Right. If
Right.
it's a medium population closer in, they're allowed to break into programming for a short period of time. And then if it's in the metro area, they can go on continuously.
They can go on continuously.
They're allowed. They're permitted. So there.
So Eric,
And Aubrey's probably still not talking to me for calling her out on the
The trackies.
trackies.
I was not the one that wrote it.
Aubrey, you said they want you to wear dark colors. They prefer you wear dark colors
Who,
on
me?
your TV,
That wasn't
on your
me.
TV station.
Not me. I don't remember that
Did
conversation.
you say that your management prefers you in dark colors?
No, my management hasn't told me anything.
Because you look fantastic in brighter colors, and I felt like you had told me somewhere sometime that they prefer you to wear dark, and that's just dopey.
You may be thinking about someone else.
Time out. Is this our Eric Berger we're looking for here?
That's your guy right there.
Okay, well that will help. Now let me try this again. Comes up with these little bitty icons here, but I think I've got him now, so I just invited him. And I am on Safari. You know, Chrome will not do Google Hangouts without memory leak, which is
What? That's funny. Up there he is.
And you know, this is like Google. This is like a Google platform, and I have to go use the Apple browser, so because it's got a memory leak, at least for me, and about 30, 40 minutes into the show, it just locks up, and doesn't do it on Safari.
Mine's fine. I'm on Chrome.
Well, you have a $5,000 computer. I have a cheap one.
I do not. I have an Air that is still running the previous operating system.
Wow.
I love
Hey,
how
Eric, can you
James
hear
says-
us? Hey, Eric. You might be muted. There's a little gear up there where you can, or actually it's not the gear, it's the microphone button.
Top center. Or check the inside of your eyelids, and if there's a little mute sign.
Yeah, I can see that you're unmuted in the software, which means you might have to change the hardware. Go to the gear, and you can pick your audio source.
Top center again.
Yeah,
Little gear.
top center, and take your pick. Note that Nate is over there ordering a pizza.
Calling his bookie.
Yeah.
Still no good, Eric. You got to tell it which source you want it to use. Oh, now you're muted. Now you're unmuted. Yeah, and in the gear, you'll get a drop down or a menu that gives you an option for camera, and then microphone, and then
Output.
sound. So you got to tell it which one you want it to use.
Unfortunately, we don't do sign language.
WHSV Channel 3.
But we can tell scratching your head that means you're confused.
And now his head exploded.
Yes.
He had an idea.
Petition.
I thought.
We need to petition Google for exploding head graphic.
Yeah.
That'd be great, wouldn't it?
Eric, you have. Oh, he's going to try again.
I love the sound
Yeah.
effect. That was pretty spectacular.
That was
Yeah,
James.
that's the exploding head sound effect. Oh boy. We moved this weekend. Remind me never to move again. My next move is going to be to the cemetery.
You're going to have 3 more houses in that town.
Oh Lord.
Yep.
Goodness. No, this is it. I'm done.
No, it's not.
That's what we said when we moved to our new house.
Yeah, famous last words. I will say that is true. Well, let's get this thing started. We know that he's invited and he knows how to get on here. So, welcome to our television audience. I always forget to welcome our television audience. We are now 1 minute into the TV simulcast here. So, welcome. This is WeatherBrains. We are about to start the shoe here. So, let me hit a couple of record buttons, and we'll get this thing started. And here we go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. This is the weekly show that is all about weather. Weather Brains, episode number 538. This is for May 9th, 2016. Thank you so much for being with us. A lot of things to talk about tonight. May's an interesting month. A lot of people have tornadoes and severe storms, and for that very reason, Rick Smith will not be on the show tonight. Rick, as you know, is the warning coordination meteorologist at the National Weather Service in Norman, Oklahoma. And they were busy today. I guess you all saw the tornado show in Oklahoma, huh?
Yeah.
Brian, you were a former WCM. I think a lot of people maybe don't appreciate what Rick has to do. So let's say you have a big day like today, and they had apparently one violent long-track tornado. They had 2 fatalities, multiple tornadoes. If you're a WCM, you get awfully busy about right now.
Oh, absolutely. You got to coordinate storm surveys to try to see the damage as quickly as possible so that you can put an effective EF scale rating on it before it all gets cleaned up. And boy, they're really getting good at cleaning up the damage nowadays. So you really have to get in there quickly to be able to see what has happened and try to get good information. A lot of people don't realize it, but you have to look at the whole track before you can make a rating because it's rated on the worst damage anywhere along the track, and that's often difficult, especially if you're just doing it by the ground survey. Best if you can have an aerial survey because that really helps you focus in on where the damage is the worst, but we don't always have air support available for that sort of thing. We have to beg, borrow, and plead with other agencies like state police and EMA and whatever, who sometimes have those helicopters that can get you up there and get it done in a shorter period of time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have the perception that the WCM just sits back in this nice air-conditioned office and he assigns crews, and that you just kind of sit back and wait for the crews to come back. You actually are a big part of the survey, right?
Oh, absolutely, yes. And probably he's going to where the fatalities are because there'll be people there with microphones and television cameras and wanting to know about things related to the fatalities. So that's something that the WCM has to respond to because he's kind of like the PR guy, public relations by that I mean.
Yep. So Aubrey Urbanowitz is also with us this evening in lovely, lovely Harrisonburg, Virginia. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys?
What's happening at Channel 3?
Let's see. It's a Monday night. It's been so busy for a Monday. I literally have yet to check my email for the day. So
wow.
That's how my Monday is gone.
Well, I think a more burning question is, how's the forest fire?
Forest fire is out.
All right.
Some good news. And actually, if I do a screen share, I can share a picture that one of our local photographers took earlier today. Can you guys see that?
Nope.
Not yet.
Nope.
I was seeing your WSI system pop up
That's what
there.
I thought it was sharing. Let me see if I can do it again. Entire screen. Let's see. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay.
Warren Fought.
Warren
Skyline
is a
Drive
wonderful
fire damage.
He actually hasn't been a photographer very long, but yeah, you can see the green and the burned trees in the foreground and stuff. So my husband and I are hoping to get up there maybe this weekend and see some of the area.
Do you know the total acreage?
I'm not familiar with this fire. How long was it burning?
Gosh, what did it end up being? It was over 2 weeks. It was over 10,000 acres.
Wow.
So nowhere near. I mean, we thought we had a big fire until Fort McMurray.
Yeah,
goodness.
that's
And you guys actually had some of the smoke from that fire in Canada come down through Virginia, didn't you?
It looked kind of hazy. I was in Charlotte over the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, so it was kind of
Wait,
hazy.
you
on our
were
way
in North
back.
Carolina and you didn't tell me?
Okay,
You didn't
so-
come to visit?
Okay, so Nate, see what had happened was.
Oh, no. That's what happened was.
So
Nate, you're supposed to come and say hi.
I know. I'm in a wedding, and because of my new schedule, I'm working Friday nights, so I don't get off work until like midnight. So we had to leave early Saturday, and then we had to go to IKEA to get some new shelving for the house.
Show title.
I got
2 hours
dumped for
later.
IKEA. For IKEA, I lost out to Swedish meatballs.
All right.
So then the wedding's not until June 4th, so we'll be down that weekend.
Wait a minute. No. You went to IKEA for a wedding that hadn't even happened yet?
Well,
and you
because
didn't...
IKEA, how far away are you from Charlotte?
You're dead to me. Come on.
Raleigh's like, what, an hour or two away from Charlotte, something like that?
Two and a half, but it's a nice, pretty drive on the back roads in North Carolina. And Kevin's got the show title. I had to go to IKEA.
Yep.
Well, after
I
the
like
drive,
lost out to Swedish meatballs better.
That was good too.
after a day trip to Philly last weekend, which
Oh,
was...
wait, you'll do a day trip to Philly, but you won't make the 2-hour little side trip to Raleigh?
No. I was forced to go on a day trip to Philly. So after that debacle,
But you went.
I
The
did not
facts
want to
of
drive
the
any
game,
extra.
you win.
I know. It's a big
Keep
one.
digging, sweetie. It's okay.
I know. But so yes, I had to get shelving at IKEA.
That's her story, and she's sticking to it.
Yada yada yada. 24 hours later, we came home.
You can't yada yada the presidency.
Kevin Selly is in Wichita Falls, Texas. I guess all the storms today were well to the east of you, huh?
Yes, we had a couple last night. A very interesting storm on the northern part of our region in Lawton. A very short period of time. Extremely heavy rain caused extensive flooding in the downtown area. But the tornado warning was just to the south of downtown and out into open country for the most part east of town. So some good pictures, but not much in the way of wind damage, thankfully, but quite a bit of flooding on Sunday night in Lawton.
Wow. And again, it was a rough day today. We'll talk about that in the weather roundup here. But let's see if we can bring in Nate, our official guest, and get his audio cranked up here.
All right. I am the... no, Eric, your name is not backwards. To answer the question. I am Nate Johnson, and we have an interesting show premise for tonight. And Eric, there's a little bit of a buzz on your channel. I don't know if there's anything you can do about that. That's much better. And now it's back. We'll figure it out. Anyway,
That's just his voice.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me fine?
Yeah, we can hear you now. That's
okay.
Good. So, a little bit of an interesting show this week. Instead of the panel peppering our guest with questions, we're going to have the tables turned on us. Eric Berger is a reporter for a writer for Ars Technica. If you're not familiar with this, it's an online website, sort of a magazine kind of a thing, and it's really good, especially if you're into the geeky side. If you're like James and Brian and me especially, you're sort of into technology. It's really good stuff. And formerly a science correspondent with the Houston Chronicle, but you made the jump onto Ars Technica. Eric, first off, welcome to WeatherBrains. Welcome back, I should say.
My pleasure to be back.
So tell us a little bit about the jump from sort of a traditional medium like the Houston Chronicle to the new media world of Ars Technica.
So I had dual interests at the Chronicle. I really liked covering science and especially space, and I had gotten a meteorology certification, and so I was interested in doing more of that as well. What really attracted me to Ars is that they've been successful online for about 16 years. They are quite a profitable website, and they let you write long stories, let you write short stories, and they offer me an opportunity to come in and write about whatever I wanted to in the realm of space. And so it was a great opportunity from that standpoint, and it allowed me to work from home, which I wasn't sure if that was going to be great or not, but it's been fantastic. So I've really enjoyed that. And I've also been able to...
Let me stop you there. Are you hiring now? Maybe weather, technology, I don't know. Anyway. So a little bit about what you're writing for now. What sorts of things? Obviously, you're interested in space. You've written about that. But tell us a little bit more about the beat that you're on, as it were?
Sure. It's probably about 90% space, which is everything from astronomy to the human space program to private space flight like SpaceX, Blue Origin, and so forth. So it's all of the things I'm interested in. And then about the other 10% is weather, a little bit of climatology, but mostly weather. For instance, about a month ago, I had the story on the Panasonic weather model, claiming to have accuracy scores equal to or greater than the European forecast model. So I've done some of that as well.
We had an interesting follow-up story by Eric Holthouse of Slate that hit the web today, basically digging a little bit deeper into that. I assume you've read that piece?
Yeah, I read it.
You summarize that for us, bring folks up to date on where that is?
Eric
I think it feeds into our conversation that we'll have shortly.
Eric kind of pushed them a little bit on making their data more publicly accessible. He was coming from the angle of, if you've got this weather forecast model and you've got cataclysmic events, major hurricanes, things like that, and the morally responsible thing to do would be to share that data if that model was really as good as advertised. And so he was kind of pushing it from the moral angle, and he went a little bit deeper too, or not deeper, but just sort of talked to more people, kind of saying that no one was really going to buy this claim until they put more of the data out there.
And as that leads us into the conversation that you're having, obviously Panasonic has found some success in their weather modeling efforts, or at least they claim to. They're not releasing a whole lot of data for us to independently verify that claim. But the point of the conversation that we're going to have is that you're wanting to have a conversation about the future of weather forecasting and the role that humans may or may not, it's a very unpopular opinion, but may not to have in the future of weather forecasting. And so I will actually let you take the floor and guide the conversation from here.
Well, first of all, I'm sympathetic to the idea of the meteorologists add value. When I left the Chronicle, I started a private weather site for Houston, Space City Weather, which has actually done very well. So I see the value in local forecast knowledge.
Again, let me stop you there. Are you hiring? Are you? I'm just kidding. To my overlords at Capitol, I am happy, but anyway.
We're growing. We actually got some sponsors and we're doing pretty well. But you know, I
got yourself some corporate sponsorships, huh, Jonas?
Yeah, we're sellouts. So I write for a technology website, and so the question becomes: everyone has an iPhone in their pocket or a mobile device. Everyone has instant access to a 5, 7 day, a 10 day. We won't talk about 45 day or 90 day forecast, fortunately. But everyone has access to that kind of information. And the story kind of is thinking about, okay, so if everyone has this mobile device, and as the computer forecast models continue to get better, sometimes you look at the Hurricane Center, verification at the end of the season, and some of the ensemble models have done as well as or better than the official forecast. And so the question becomes, as these trends continue, what role is there for human meteorologists in the next 5, 10, or 15 years? And so that's kind of the story, is kind of looking at these trends in the large global models, looking at the technology and sort of the ability to get a personalized forecast for your location, a point forecast, on your mobile device. And so what is the, what value do meteorologists play, going forward?
So I want to jump in and just make the comment that this is it's not a new idea, and I'm not suggesting that you're saying that it is, but it's interesting that how the thinking has evolved over the last 15 or 20 years, and that if I'm not mistaken, I think it was Brooks and Doswell who had did a presentation at an AMS meeting about the future forecasting, and one of the things that they suggested was that at some point down the road, the computer models, at that time they were not good enough to really be thinking about this, but at some point down the road they would get good enough to where the humans would add value on the margins. And that is in the Black Swan cases, the May 3rd, 1999 kind of thing, where the models, as bad as they were, didn't capture the depth of the situation. Doing QC on the models to catch clear errors and biases and to clean up for things like that. And again, to add value sort of at the margins. And some would argue we might be there today, where if you look at, especially at how apps like Dark Sky, especially on the temperature side of the house and on POPs, on chances of precipitation, you see just blending all the numbers from the numerical guidance we have together comes up with a pretty good forecast that's good 85% of the time. I'm pulling that number out of thin air, but so it's interesting to see how that thinking has changed, and how I think you're seeing the weather service respond to that in the idea of the shift toward decision support service. That you made the point in the email to me that, and I think this was a Peter Neely quote. He's the one of the senior VPs of global forecasting for the weather company, an IBM Business trademark, and he suggested that forecasters are shifting more into an interpretive role of computer data rather than active forecasting. And I hope I'm not mischaracterizing that quote, but and I think you're seeing that in the weather service shift toward decision support in that interpretation of weather data and that sort of thing. Is that sort of the theme that you're picking up on, and is that the topic you want to explore?
No, I think that's right. I mean, one of the things that I had talked to you about was this, this IBM thinking after they acquired the weather company, that they were really putting their emphasis on data analysis and not so much forecasting and guiding decision making. And he was saying that even some of the decision making now, they think that they can do with computers and algorithms and things like that, at least equal quality to meteorologists. So, I wanted to get some general thoughts on that, and then I wanted to sort of drill down a little bit, because local forecasting, I think there's still quite a bit of value in understanding what the models tend to get right, what they tend to get wrong, and sort of understanding, like in Houston, the sea breeze effect in the summer, and that or if you're in the mountains, kind of that forecasting, or it varies, of course, across the country. So I wanted to sort of get a sense of how important y'all still feel that is as well.
We're hearing crickets now. Kevin, Kevin, go. I know that you're cranky. You want to say something, so go.
No, I'm waiting to hear where the discussion is going. To answer that question, to get the ball rolling, I'll say what I've said a number of times on this show is that the severe weather episodes, things like that, those are 10, 15, 20, 25 days per year. You can't run a business model on that, even though those are important. And unless you're in Oklahoma City when you're doing the big show like they do during severe weather, but you can't run a business model on that. So we have to go, okay, what are we going to do the other 335 days per year? My personal opinion, and something I'm trying to do here, and we actually had it launched a couple of weeks ago, but there were some website problems, is to move. I think that's the only thing we have left, is to move to a substantive and at the same time personality-driven, I don't mean caricatures, but personality-driven short fuse forecast. I think that's the only place left for us.
And let me just say this. I don't think there's anything bad about these phone forecasts. People get all upset. Well, people are looking at their phones. Well, it is easy for them. It is in their best interest.
This coming from the guy who calls them crap apps.
No, well, they are. No. Let me finish. It's a beautiful thing. Joe Q. Public can look at his phone at any hour of the day or night. They don't have to wait for some blow-dried boob to come on television, and they can see a quick look at the weather. That they get some basic weather information. It is convenient, and I think what we have to do, we have to provide products and services that are convenient for them. If people are looking at their phone, we need to provide something where they can glance at their phone and get good weather. And yes, all these automated apps, and I know that Nate's going to say, well, I'm working for Capital Broadcasting, ours is not automated. But most stations,
I've got a legion of monkeys banging in forecasts for 7 days for every grid point in the United States right now. You just can't hear them.
There you go.
They're just on the other side of that door.
So all the TV stations, the Weather Channel, AccuWeather, Weather Underground, Weather Bug, all these things, they're automated. They're using this gridded data without anybody looking at it. And what do you get on your phone? You get basically, I think in most cases, a few numbers, high, low, and a magical probability of precipitation. That doesn't tell you anything. If you got a big day coming up, if you're planning a wedding, if you've got a picnic, if you've got a school field trip, that's crap. And number one, it's bad anyway. Most of the time it's very inaccurate. What you need, you want to know, when's the rain going to start? When's the rain going to stop? Where is it going to rain? What's the confidence level in the forecast? Will the storms be severe? And if they're going to be severe, what's the biggest problem? Is it going to be hail or damaging winds? Is there the risk of a tornado? Could there be some flooding? All these things you're not going to get off a crap app. So what we have to do is provide products and services that provide answers to those questions in an easy, accessible way on their phone, device, or whatever. And we have to be there, which leaves the question, then what are we going to do on television? This model is still working. Most TV stations still make a lot of money. That's my opinion, that the model is dying. And the nice thing about television, unlike newspapers, Eric, you worked at a newspaper, that's the print stuff to me is just going away. I mean, our daily here in town, I think, is printing 2 or 3 days a week, and that's it. Everybody's going to have a TV set hanging on the wall, or they're going to have some device around them, so the platform is there. We have to do something that's relevant, and doing a Ron Burgundy weathercast from 1979 is not going to cut it. Some blow-dried boob comes on, hey, sunny skies for your Thursday. No. We have to reinvent that, and that's what, to me, the biggest challenge is reinventing the television part of it. So here's my
I had a couple of comments. Number one, I did a presentation along with Susan Jasko at NWA, not last year, but year before last, and we talked about sort of the past, present, future of weather forecasting and and weather information consumption. In the past, if you wanted a weather forecast, you had to get it either from the newspaper in the morning or on
which was 12 hours old, by the way.
Which was 12 hours old, but the forecasts back then were not all that great, so you couldn't really tell. Or you could get it, during the 1/2 hour of morning news or the 1/2 hour of evening news, and that was it. If you lived in a big town, you might have had a time and temperature number that gave you a recorded forecast that may have been 12 hours old. Who knows? Now we're living in this era where it's everywhere. You can pull out your phone, you can turn on the television, you can go on the internet. The weather information is there anytime you want. You can reach out and get it. The future, in my not terribly humble opinion, is weather forecast information that finds you where you are when you need it, and it proactively finds you. Think of the Nest, which for those that aren't familiar with it, it's a thermostat that you install in your house, and you play with it and set it to your liking for the first few weeks. And after some number of weeks, 2-3 weeks, something like that, based on your patterns, it learns that on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, you leave the house at about 8, and you want to set the thermostat up so your air conditioner doesn't have to work so hard. And then it knows that about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, and you want it to be nice and cool when you get back to the house. So it's the programmable part of that, which I would say is the today technology, but it's learning about you, learns about what you like, and then proactively makes a pretty good first pass guess at what it thinks you're going to want, and then does it without you having to ask. It's sort of this automated thing. I think that's where weather forecasting in general is going. I'm curious, and I really am curious, James, where, we've been challenged at my station. I'm not sure of any weather department that isn't being challenged or won't be challenged in the coming year or two, especially next year, because I think 2017 is not going to be pretty for broadcasters, local or corporate. We're going to be challenged to reinvent the television piece of that. Now, WSI has come out with Max Connect, which will allow you to walk around the studio and play with your graphics on the iPad. You've got this Max Reality, which is an augmented reality, 3D sort of a thing, which I want to give a shout out to the folks at KTRK in Houston, because Tim and Travis, their group, they do a really good job using that technology. There's a reason that they're on all the demo reels that WSI sends to sell that product. I don't know. To me, that feels more like eye candy than it does a useful thing that's going to have longevity in keeping people engaged. But I don't know. James, what do you think the future of the television piece of it is?
Well, that's the thing. I don't think anybody knows. For example, all right, so in an hour and 5 minutes, I'm going to walk in that studio, and they're going to give me 2 minutes and 30 seconds to fill. And that's the question everybody on this panel has to answer. What do you do in 2 minutes and 30 seconds on a late newscast, 11 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Central. Everybody knows what the weather's going to do except maybe my mom, who's 85. Maybe she doesn't know. But for most everybody, they've looked on their phone. And what am I going to do? Am I going to just rehash a bunch of stuff they've already seen or do something different? I don't have an answer. Like tonight, the weather's quiet where I am. And like Kevin says, look, whenever we got thunderstorms or tornadoes or snow, that's easy. That's the easy part. You've got to figure it out on those 300 days a year where there's nothing going on. I'm going to start with some of the Oklahoma stuff. That's a very riveting video. And talk about it.
Exactly what we did at 6 o'clock today. As a matter of fact, our producer called and said, hey, you want to talk about Oklahoma? And Fish just about fell over himself. Yes, let's talk about Oklahoma.
Yeah, we did that. We did that on the early. We took some of the stuff live. I don't know the agreements, but we took a bunch of their stuff live.
Yep.
I had piles of pictures from social media. We talked about that, the possible impact on my state, the differences in the storms in Traditional Alley and Dixie Alley, and kind of use it as a teachable moment. Where I'm not going to go through temperatures. Hey, it's 75 degrees in Birmingham. No. If people want to know what the temperature is, they can look at their phone. I mean, that I don't go through that. I don't do sunrise. I don't do sunset. I am telling a story, and the story is different every night.
You don't do an almanac every weathercast, James?
No. I hate those things. I hate those things. If you want to know what the sunrise sunset time is, go look at your crap app. That's what those things are for. But I'm up there to tell a story in what's really interesting, and every night it's going to be different. And there might be nights where and that's the thing, so many of us are so tied to these graphics boxes, WSI, Max, I don't even know what you call this thing we have. We got the WSI stuff in here. They're so tied to that they think, well, I've got to use all these fancy graphics. Nobody gives a crap about some 3D, view of the clouds. I mean, back in the old days in the 90s, that was so cool. And the truth is that stuff's not really useful. You go down to the Walmart, the Publix, where people really hang out, the Targets of the world, they don't care about that stuff. I don't feel tied to that. And there might be nights where I would use that thing for one purpose, the final graphics, tonight, tomorrow, and the 7-day forecast. We still do that, and I think that's, what people want to see. But there'll be nights where I don't use it for anything. So I'm not tied to that thing. I don't want to be tied to that thing. I use a lot of stuff I get from social media, and I'm very blessed to have a lot of people that send me a lot of cool stuff. And if there's something really cool, I'll show it if it involves the story I'm going to tell. And I will not define the story probably the time I walk in that studio. And, of course, I'm slightly busy tonight. I can't sit here and work on it, but I don't think you can be tied to this canned formula where every night you go out there, today's high was 75, this morning's low is 52, your sunrise time tomorrow morning is come on, that's old school. That's not working for me. So I want to tell a story. I want it to be interesting, really fascinating, and good. And every night the story is going to be different. The graphic elements are different, and at some point I'll figure out what people want to see.
So I think that's a good point. I think people want stories. What I have found is most effective is people are looking for someone that they connect to. And I know you guys know this all too well, being in the television game. They want someone they can sort of trust and go to and get this information. One of the things I was really curious about is, has the way you've done a forecast now, and I don't mean this to impugn in any way, but I mean, do you actively forecast conditions for the next 5 days, or is that mostly from some kind of subscription service you buy, and has the way you forecast changed as the forecast models have improved?
Nate?
For my point, I find that I do less engagement, and a lot of times, I came through school in the late '90s, and Steve Koch, who's now the director of NSSL, was one of the professors at NC State, and I had a chance to have him for a couple of times, and one of the things he taught us was there's more stuff out there than you could possibly consume, and in the amount of time you have to forecast, and you need to focus on the forecast problem of the day. So pick out the one or two things you really need to focus your time on. Spend all of your time digging into that, and then let the models or whatever other background data that you have, maybe the previous forecast, sort of carry the details on the rest. And so, like last week we were looking at a rainy weekend. So I probably would spend most of my time really focusing on the timing of the rain for Saturday and Sunday, and let either the previous forecast or model data or MOS or something sort of fill in the gaps, make sure that I can smooth around the edges, and really invest my time and my expertise into something where I'm going to be able to get value and what people are interested in. And then, nobody cares about, high of, partly cloudy, a 10% chance of a thunderstorm, and a high of 90, which is the forecast around here about 3 months of the year. It's the days where you do have either it's going to be particularly cold, particularly hot, or particularly wet that you can focus your time on, and that's that. So that's sort of my approach. When I get into, I get more into the story. I don't go through the entire forecast line by line every weather hit. We try and break it up, and so at 5 o'clock we'll focus on one aspect of the weather, maybe this weekend's rain chance, and then at 5:30 we'll talk about the big pattern and to see how the upper level winds are going to change and how that may lead us to colder, wetter weather for next week, or hotter, drier weather for next week, what have you. Maybe at 6 we do something a little geeky, but to try and mix things up that way. And to be frank, I think we could probably even take that even farther than we do. But I tend to agree with James in the sense that if all you're doing is, almanac, current conditions, satellite radar, futurecast tonight, tomorrow, 7-day, and you're doing that 8 times in a morning newscast, you're done.
I will say this: I love forecasting. I love being able to look at data and come up with a sensible public forecast for 7 days. My biggest struggle is time, and there are days where I feel like I don't have time to do it justice. And that's something I've got to manage better, I think, especially on days during winter storm possibilities, during severe weather, heavy rain, tropical, all these really active days, because you get so busy, dealing with social media. You ought to walk a mile in my shoes in an 18-hour day where you're dealing with the social media platforms and people are asking questions and it involves interactivity. You really can't put it down for more than 5 or 6 hours. If you do that, you come back and it's just overwhelming. So I've got to find a way of balancing my time where I can respond to people on social media and spend time in forecasting. The one thing I do that helps me, I do the technical videos twice a day, and Brian does it on the weekend where we're showing a bunch of maps that we don't show on television. It's a technical discussion. Doing that video twice a day, once at 5 in the morning and once at 3 in the afternoon, really forces me to be briefed. And if you watch me on television, I'll make that commitment. And I have gone through a pretty darn good briefing, and I've looked at a lot of this stuff. And I'd like to think that I can do better than the crap apps that are using automated stuff. And one question, Eric, you asked, do we use these services? I don't know. I know AccuWeather, I think, does services for television stations where they do forecasting for them. Don't know if anybody else does or not, but I have never in my 38 years used an external service because they're paying me to do that. That would be ripping off my company. They're paying me to handle that. And if I've got to go get some outside service, then they don't need me. They need to go find somebody else. Brian?
What?
Brian's awfully quiet.
Yes, I'm trying to turn over a new leaf.
Wow. And Aubrey wants to. She wants to answer the question, but she had to go on television. Eric, I'm sorry. Some of us work nights here, and we're having to dodge these television newscasts. Kevin had to go do television. Aubrey had to go television. So they'll be back in a minute. Brian, what happened? Did you get in trouble last week for your rants or something?
No.
It's like you're in timeout. You're just not saying anything. Like.
Now it's been a busy week last week, and it's going to be an even busier week this week. So that has nothing to do with weather. It has to do with local activities, namely our little Buck Creek Festival, and a lot of that falls to me and what I do on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So it's going to be a busy week.
Okay, well, no, you went off on the Weather Enterprise last week. I just thought somebody got mad at you.
Nope.
Okay.
And I would like to answer Eric's question, and that is no. I do make the 7-day forecast. I don't have a service, and I work for James.
Yeah.
Okay, I honestly I've never worked in TV. I didn't really know how that worked. How important, sort of picking up a little bit on that, is local knowledge in terms of forecasting, understanding the topography and the sort of the way the landscape and the geography plays in your forecasting?
I think it's huge. I said, Brian, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. No, James, I wasn't sure if he was addressing that to me or you. I think he's addressing it to you. So
anyone.
Okay. Well, I want to tell you, it was local knowledge that got me selected to be on the Olympic weather support team, because when they were in Atlanta, the wedge is a big deal, more a big deal over there than it is over here, but it impacts us over here. So I think that your local knowledge is very important, and I think people understand that and value that as a commodity in the people that they're looking to for weather information on television.
I tend to agree
All
with
right.
that. I think that there's a reason that, I guess it was a few months ago when I think it might have been John Thune in South Dakota, but somebody put out the bill that suggested that we consolidate the Weather Service forecast offices into 6 regional centers, and the forecasting would be consolidated. You'd still have offices in a lot of these places, but they wouldn't have the forecasting responsibility. That would be shifted to the centers. And I think one of the reasons that you heard an uproar out of that, not just the fact that that probably would result in a reduction in force over time, which is never popular, but the thought that you would lose the local knowledge. I mean, there's a reason that folks that stay in a market for a long time, I think they become successful for 2 reasons. Number one, people get to know them better. People in Birmingham know James. People in Raleigh know Greg Fischel. People in Dallas know David Finfrock. And there's a trust that's built that cannot be built in short order. It must be built and nurtured over time. But part of that trust, I think part and parcel of that is that local knowledge, that understanding that the wedge tends to last a little longer than all the computer models will forecast it. They always try to clean it out too quickly. That natural pessimism that we have about snow cases in Miller Type B cyclogenesis setups here in the East Coast. So we tend to be very pessimistic about snow totals because we tend to get hosed in mixed precip cases, things like that you develop over time through trial and error. Sometimes you wind up having your keister handed to you by Mother Nature a couple of times, and you learn the lesson, and then you move on. And then you lean on that experience over time. So I think that's big, and I think that to the broader question of value, the human value in forecasting, I think that's probably one place where we can still add value over the computer models, and will be able to for some time.
And I've said this many times, you can't forecast the weather unless you understand the geography and the culture and the people of the market that you serve. There's so many things that come into play. And yes, in my market, we're at the foothills of the Appalachians. You have no idea that it might be 20 degrees colder in Pinson, Alabama than the Birmingham airport. It's like if you moved me to Denver or Cleveland, I would be a rookie. I would be horrible. I have to go back to school to learn the various mesoscale processes that drive the weather in those places, and it's the same thing here. But I think the other important thing to understand, it's the culture and the people. When you say the word snow, does it mean anything? If you're in Buffalo, probably doesn't mean much at all. But if you're in Birmingham, you can shut this whole place down with saying the wrong words on television, and you've got to be very careful. And it's the same thing with severe weather. And snow's one thing, we joke about that, but when it comes to tornadoes and severe storms, you have to understand how to posture yourself, how to make eye contact, the words that you say, the way that you dress, the tone of your voice. All these things are very important, and there is no way you can move to Atlanta or Seattle or San Diego or Dallas-Fort Worth or Chicago and know that right away. It takes time. That's why I think there's a great advantage to staying in a market for a long time. You learn these things. People will teach you. If you let them, they will teach you. The weather will teach you. And you gain this knowledge. This is your crap app cannot handle that. It doesn't get it. Nothing personal in the National Weather Services, but Weather Nation and the Weather Channel, they don't get it. So that's a great advantage we have that nobody else does have.
Well, I agree with that. And I think that's kind of the conclusion of thinking about this, over some time that I've come to, is that there's a lot of value in local knowledge, and there's a lot of value in having a brand in the community that people trust. I found that on a limited scale, even here in Houston. But for people, weather is intensely personal. It affects them. It affects everyone. But they're looking to go to someone that they know has the answers. And so I think that ultimately having this local knowledge and the connection you talked about, James, knowing the people, there's a lot of value in that, and that's something that is not going to be taken away by a computer or by sort of a national company anytime soon. I guess my question would be, one thing I noticed is we talked about this earlier, for those 250 or 300 days a year, maybe 250, where there's not that much going on, I noticed there's not much interest in weather. So how do you, for those days, for the majority of the year when that crap app, it does a pretty good job of giving you a forecast in terms of high temperature, low temperature, and just sunny or cloudy. I think that's the real challenge, is sort of keeping yourself relevant during those times.
I think you've hit it on the head, and there's some consultants who have come out and said make every day a severe weather day. We know that severe weather drives viewership. And the thinking is, well, if we make every day a severe weather day, not to say that little rain shower over there is severe and we need to break into programming, but the idea that there needs to be something in every weathercast to try and grab people's attention and to draw them in. There's some stations that are doing now at the beginning of the forecast, instead of there used to be, there's that period of time where you had some stations giving you the entire 7-day at the very beginning of the forecast, and then they'd go through the content, and then they'd end up with maybe a 2-day or 3-day, something like that. Not quite that, but they're showing a 7-day, and they're flagging the 1 or 2 or 3 days where the weather might be interesting, might be inconveniencing, or might kill you, and using those as alert days maybe. That's one way of trying to get at that. But I think on those other days, it's about the context. I mean, ABC World News, NBC Nightly News, CBS, they have to fill 30 minutes. Whether that's a busy news day or a slow news day, and I think the weather is the same thing. I think, if anything, weather is more topically driven. That's one thing that we found with website traffic, is that on a big weather day, our website numbers are way, 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 way up. And on a quiet stretch of weather where we may be slipping into a little bit of drought because it's been so dry, but man, it's so nice and everybody's outside, that our website traffic tanks because the weather's not driving views to these sort of folks that may come to the website for a weather forecast, and then they get hooked into something else, and they do a little digging around the web, around our website for something. I think it's a big question for our entire industry, is how do you do that? I think one of the approaches that James has done, where he's pulling in a lot of pictures from social media, that's one way to do it. Some stations are relying on the expertise of their meteorology staff to delve into things that maybe aren't exactly weather related, things that consultants would have balked at even just a couple of years ago, where we need to do futurecast and hour by hour, and it needs to be down to your backyard and your neighborhood, that kind of thing. I think we may be backing off of that a little bit, realizing that the phone is a far better and more efficient way to deliver that information, and that the guy or gal on TV needs to be doing something else, and that something else may be at 6 o'clock on your newscast of record, spending 2 of your 4 minutes of weather showing video from a live outbreak in Oklahoma, and doing a little bit of storm analysis with your tools, showing your people that, hey, I can still do this. It's quiet around here, but when this stuff hits, I'm the guy or gal you can trust.
And what's amazing to me, these consultant goobs very recently said everything's got to be local, 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 local. Everything's got to be local. No national maps, no nothing. All local. So now the same consultant goobs want you to show the tornado stuff in Oklahoma City. I mean, I don't even listen to these guys. But Kevin's back. So, Kevin, what do you do on a slow day in the weather office? Dull weather. How do you feel your 2.5 or 3 minutes?
I can't. We're still in a live show until 9:30.
Oh, Kevin, it's like Kevin's doing a golf tournament. We have to.
I'm listening very carefully.
Way. Yes. Okay.
And making notes.
And Aubrey wants to talk about this too, but no, and again, that is the challenge. And I think there are nights where maybe I need to get some time back. There are nights where I need 6 minutes. And, it's hard for these guys to dish out 6 minutes, but there are nights where I need 6 minutes. If there's a big deal, I will get you big numbers. I will get you the numbers you want, the ratings. Give me 6 minutes. But on a day where there's nothing going on, I might just take 45 seconds or 1 minute. But I'll say this, I think the favorite weathercast I do is in the early block. We do a block between 4 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. I don't stand on the green wall. No chroma key. I stand with the news anchor, and we have a conversation. We're just talking. and we show it, and again, every day it's different. Every day the story is different. We had a day recently, and the weather was dull. We showed a couple of flowers, and we wound up burning 2 minutes talking about flowers. And we were arguing about what kind of flower is this, and that was one of the highest rated shows we've done in a while in that block. I mean, the numbers spiked. So yeah, sometimes we just chase things like that. We have to be storytellers. We have to be interesting. The one thing I've learned, it cannot be dull, and I've seen way too many people stand on that wall during dull weather, and they are doing a dull forecast, and they look uninterested. They look bored, and you just can't do that. You've got to have a passion for what you talk about when you go out there. So tonight at 10, I'm probably going to show more pictures off social media than anything else from the Oklahoma tornadoes and talk about the difference in the storms in Dixie Alley and traditional Tornado Alley and some of the storm structure cases out there, and then do a little bit, for us. So it just varies, Eric. But times are clearly changing, and you're right. The key to us keeping our job in this television business is being interesting and compelling and relevant to the people that are watching, and bring in some younger people too.
Being dependable without being predictable.
Well, I liked what you said there, James, about storytelling, and I think that's really a good way to look at it. And as a consumer, that makes sense to me. One thing Nate said kind of terrified me. The idea that every day has to be a severe weather day.
It terrifies us too.
Well, in Houston, when you've got 90 straight days of 95 degrees, high pressure, and mostly sunny days,
Yeah.
that it gets pretty old pretty quick. So is that really a thing, or is that kind of come and gone?
So Brian, should I tell Eric what that guy told us?
Absolutely.
Because I have to remember that we are on our television station here. Now we had some guy tell us that crying wolf is not a bad thing, and that was horrifying, just horrifying.
Yes.
Basically wanting us to play up, harmless showers and store, showers, maybe a little bit of thunder, and hype it up and make it a big deal.
Hey, Kevin, I've got my high blood pressure medication here for you if you need some. I can see your head's getting ready to explode.
Was this a consultant that told you that?
In fact, this is what it sounded like in the office when I heard about it. It sounded basically like this.
This was a consultant or a viewer telling you this?
This was a news executive, and not local. No, nobody in my building. And it's just, he didn't say it to me. He said it to some other people I work with here. And I think he knew better than to say it to me. Yeah. And he was mainly working with a morning show. And the problem with that, of course, is that in my market, the false alarm ratio, the cry wolf syndrome, has killed countless people. Precious people have died from years and years of false alarms. Warnings are issued, nothing ever happens, hyping stuff up, and they hear stuff all the time and they don't do anything. So finally, when a big day does come along, they hear the warning and they don't take action, and they're killed. So I don't play that game. And one of the things I think that we're all spending time on now is fighting hype. That seems to occupy an amazing amount of my time. Hype from kids with Facebook pages that forecast snowstorms 5 months in advance for the southern U.S. or a year in advance. Hype from whoever. We got to cut back on that stuff. That's the one thing you won't hear me do is hype. The minute you hear me just hyping weather all the time, that's no big deal. Just shoot me and bury me upside down in the parking lot so our employees here will have a place to park their bicycles.
Go get him, James.
Put that in your story, Eric.
Yeah. But look, when it gets to this hype stuff, I just don't like the trend. And we've talked about it here, and I don't want to go back down this road, but again, you're seeing local TV stations now issuing their own warnings, putting out these outrageous, TORCON, DEFCON numbers, and everybody's doing it. You've got weather alert, weather emergency days, or whatever they call it. Everybody's doing some kind of hyping stuff here, and it's just, as Kevin says, the horse is out of the barn, but I'm going to do all I can to get that horse back in the barn. If we go down that path, we're just as bad as crap apps when you're hyping up every time a dog pees on a bush out here. with some severe thunderstorm. And we can't do that. The minute they force me to do that, I'll retire and go work at the 7-Eleven down here, shop a snack or something.
Well, that certainly is a product of the internet, as you referred. I mean, there's a lot of people. I mean, everything is hyped on social media, and weather I don't think is any different. I do think there is a pretty big audience for sort of more a calm and rational approach to the weather. Kind of my main MO is the website I have is no hype. I mean, it's basically like, you don't have to really worry about something until we say you should worry about this, because you don't exaggerate. And so there's some pushback, but I don't know in the ratings audience whether the number that wants sort of the excitement and the hype is as high, and the number that sort of want a more calm forecast is low. So.
Yeah, well, for the hype, go ahead, Kevin.
Well, we're in a break and the sports is coming up, but you're swerving into an important point about the audience numbers, and this is something I learned reading The Long Tail many years ago, and we've talked about this several times on this show. But what I came away with from that book was you can't in the digital age you can't just say you're going to service one audience, and it makes me really frustrated when I hear people say, well, people want X, and then they go off and say, well, people want hype coverage, people want non-hyped coverage, people want this, people want that. It's some people. Some people want this, some people want that, some people want the other thing. And so it's a sign of a fracturing audience, and it's difficult to serve all those little pieces of the pie. But if you can service them, then you need to do it, because then you are now back aggregating a bunch of small groups into a larger audience, which supports your business model. But the digital model is not going to support the television model. I think they're coming back, so I'll have to stop again.
This is great. Kevin says like a golf commentator. But no, that's what that AccuWeather guy said. Remember, we kept asking him. Brian was all over him about that 45-day forecast. Now they're doing a 90-day forecast. And look, everybody on this show knows there's no skill in that.
And I have good proof that there is no skill.
Brian has some interesting stats.
I have hand-kept stats on their forecast. I'm going to wait until after the festival occurs before I reveal but it's been interesting because they've been all over the board, and so it's going to be interesting as to which day they were right and which days they weren't right.
Yeah, and again, there's no skill in a 90-day forecast, but remember the guy's constant line, what he said over and over. Well, it's what people want.
Well, it's what
people
they want.
Want that. They love this. They want that. And my response is, well, people would love a machine that can control the weather, where you press a button and the sun comes out. Let's sell that stuff for $100. People would love that, but it doesn't work. So, at some point, people are going to figure out it's just not working. So, I don't know. All right, well, I'll tell you what, guys, while we're going to pause here, let me get these recorded segments in, because as you might know, I'm probably here's another thing we do. They lead with weather all the time. The fact that networks have figured that out. If you notice, all the national networks, almost every night, they lead with weather. But since I'm leading with weather, let's take a quick break. We're going to do Professor Peters. We've got Tony Rice. We're going to come back with our weather roundup. We will do picks of the week, much more. Email with Aubrey as WeatherBrains rolls along.
WeatherBrains 101 with Professor Peters.
A moonbow is a rainbow produced by light reflected off the surface of the moon, refracting off moisture-laden clouds in the atmosphere. Moonbows, also known as a lunar rainbow or a white rainbow, are relatively faint due to the smaller amount of light reflected from the surface of the moon. They are always in the opposite part of the sky from the moon, because the light is usually too faint to excite the cone color receptors in human eyes. It is for the human eye to discern colors in a moonbow. As a result, they often appear to be white. However, the colors in a moonbow can be seen in long exposure photographs. Moonbows are not new and have been mentioned at least since Aristotle's meteorology circa 350 BC, and were also included in an 1847 publication on science and the arts. Moonbows are most easily viewed when the moon is at or very close to its brightest phase, that of the full moon. For true moonbows to have the greatest prospect of appearing, the moon must be low in the sky, typically at an elevation of less than 42 degrees, and preferably lower, And the night sky must be very dark. Since the sky is not completely dark on a rising or setting full moon, this means they can only be observed 2 to 3 hours before sunrise or 2 to 3 hours after sunset. And of course, there must be rain falling opposite the moon. This combination of conditions makes moonbows much rarer than rainbows produced by the sun. Moonbows may also be visible when rain falls during full moon rise at extreme latitudes during the winter months. One good location for viewing true moonbows is Waimea, Kamila, Hawaii Island, Hawaii. There are numerous places in the world that feature spray fog or mist-induced rainbows. In the United States, such bows may be seen in relation to various waterfalls, including Yosemite National Park, California, and Cumberland Falls near Corbin, Kentucky. Victoria Falls in Africa on the border between Zambia and Zimbabwe, and Piltivice Lakes in Croatia are also widely known for spray moonbows. Another rarity that makes our atmosphere so interesting. If you have a question about the weather, you can drop an email to question@weatherbrains.com.
Looking beyond the atmosphere, here's Tony.
Earlier today, Mercury transited the Sun. It took about 7.5 hours. The show was visible in its entirety across the eastern United States, South America, and part of Western Europe and Western Africa. It was already underway as the Sun rose across the western part of North America, however. This event doesn't happen very often. Mercury orbits the Sun about every 88 Earth days, so you'd think it would pass in front of the Sun from our vantage point here on Earth a lot more often than it does. But two events have to line up just right for a transit to occur. First, you need an inferior conjunction. That happens when Mercury, or Venus, passes between Earth and the Sun. Well, this happens about 4 times a year. But Mercury's orbit is tilted about 7 degrees to that of the Earth. This is actually the most of the 8 planets in our solar system. During most inferior conjunctions, Mercury is above or below the Sun, so it's not going to appear across the Sun's disk. But about 13 times a century, an inferior conjunction occurs at the 2 points in Mercury's orbit where it crosses the plane of Earth's orbit. This happens in May and November. Transits can occur in the first 2 weeks of those months. The closer it occurs to the middle of those windows, the more of the Sun's face the planet will slide across, and the longer the transit event will last. The next transit of Mercury will be November 11th, 2019. There will be another couple transits in 2032 and 2039, also occurring on the other side of the Sun in November. But they will be complete before the Sun even rises in North America, so we won't be able to see him here. Elsewhere in the sky, look up to the Moon Sunday night. Jupiter will be shining very brightly, less than 2 degrees away. While you're out, look up and to the right of the Moon a bit for the backwards question mark that forms the head of Leo the Lion. That's your Astronomy Outlook. Follow me at RTP Hokie for more spacey stuff like this.
When the weather ball is red, warmer weather is ahead. When the weather ball is white, colder weather is in sight. When the weather ball is green, no change in the weather is foreseen. When colors blink by night or day, precipitation's on the way.
All right, so I noticed that Eric hung up on us. Nate, did you make him mad, or Kevin? Who chased him off here? Oh, nature muted.
Nate did it.
Yes,
I did no such thing.
And Kevin was just getting cranked up. I mean,
I know.
So, Kevin, did you make him mad? Yeah. So, hey, Aubrey, can you talk now? Because you had some thoughts on all of his questions. So let's give you the floor while you got a second here.
Well, yeah. Let me adjust the camera so I can lean over to the mic. You know, my thought, and I was, I wish I could listen more because I was very intrigued by the conversation when I had to leave and stuff about, you know, what can we do, us versus apps and things like that. You know, and I've tried to throw some ideas out there, and so far I've been kind of shot down. But you know, a lot of us are told, you know, you were saying that you know, tonight obviously your lead is going to be the active weather. And the plains was kind of going on, you know, right around your area. But you know, there are a lot of us who are kind of confined to our DMA.
So what do you do on slow days when you don't have any exciting weather? Do you do the same thing every night? Do you do something different? How do you handle the challenge that people have looked at their phone, they know what the weather's going to do, and they hit the 11 o'clock news? What do you tell them in that 2.5 minutes?
Well, I've got 3 minutes.
Oh,
But and a first weather. But in that time, I actually have to cut back because James, I'm like you. I could talk for 10 minutes on 4 graphics, and I have to not rush because I'm a fast talker anyways. I have to cut back on my graphics. So honestly, I only use 5, maybe 6 graphics, and then the 7-day. So I have to cut back on my graphics so I don't talk too fast. And I will, we've got an active pattern this week, but, tonight I'm kind of showing the stalled out front that's pretty much right across the area and how temperatures are going to vary within maybe 30 and 50 miles tonight, tomorrow, which is kind of what we saw this afternoon. So little things like that, depending on if we're in wildfire season or, we can get kind of dry sometimes, especially in the summer months, talk about rain. You kind of talk about there are some ways to talk about what's going on without getting too wide, but I feel bad sometimes, this afternoon when I zoomed out and showed the storms that were literally just starting to fire around the 5 o'clock show today, and I thought I was going to get yelled at because I was showing Oklahoma and Texas these severe storms that were just getting ramped up.
Hey, if they yell at you, you tell them to call me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
So,
But it is. It's a constant. Am I too far out? Am I zoomed out? Am I, what matters to the people? And you take a gander at, well, this is huge. This is going to be a big story tonight.
So how much control do you have? I mean, who is the dominant force in determining weather content during a television weather segment there? Consultants, management, or you?
I am, but we have guidelines that are, kind of put to us by an outline via mainly the consultant, and management likes what the consultant says, so that's kind of what we, are driven by.
Kevin's laughing.
Go on, Kevin.
I don't know where to go.
I don't have anyone over my shoulder every day that says you have to show this, this, and this, but I know what I'm going to get an email about after, maybe if I didn't do it once, but maybe if I did it 3 or 4 days in a row, I know what I'm going to get an email about.
Kevin, say what she can't say.
Well, it's a bunch of caca. Obviously, there are no, to my knowledge, there are no former operational weather people in any consulting roles, and their job is to come in and try and figure out the lowest common denominator and to come up with, just like the weather vendors, just come up with new products for you and to change things over time and so on and so forth. And they act as a fallback for a local management or even national management who needs somebody to blame. In theory, it's a good idea that these consultants look out across the landscape and find best practices and bring them to you, but I don't think that's what happens in a lot of cases. They just have to come up with new products. They have to change things. That's why I think we're, the shift we're going away from. This is the beginning of the departure of the what was referred to in some cases as local. And so what will filter down to you, Aubrey, is that, well, this is a big story in Oklahoma City. You should be showing this because it's a change from what they were doing before. Meantime, the whole model is just contracting. But I just can't.
Come on. We're just talking between us girls here. Go.
I know, but I honestly don't think that there is hope for the TV model for some rebirth. I think it's going to be a long, slow burn, a very long and a very painful burn into, I don't want to say irrelevancy, but what's going to happen is what has been happening. People are just going to drift away from this product. In this market, I laughed earlier because you guys were talking about, doing the almanac, and somebody, I think James said, you don't do the sunrise or sunset time, and I pulled that from my show when I got here, and we're a very older skewing market, and old people don't like change in a lot of cases. And I got a lot of pushback for not showing the sunrise and sunset time. And we had scaled back on the almanac as well, and I got a lot of pushback for that. One woman came up for me one day at an appearance or something, and she actually sits and waits for the 6 o'clock news so that she can see what the high was in Wichita Falls today and write it down on her calendar. And so she was mad at me because that's interrupting her routine. Is she the majority? I don't know, but there's a certain comfort level and a routine that I think especially older viewers like. Are we going to bring the younger viewers in? I don't know, but then you say, okay, well, if I'm going to show the sunrise and sunset time and the almanac thing, you know, am I going to run off younger viewers? Well, that's just part of the fracturing audience. So I guess part of the answer is to really understand what your market wants. Maybe that's harder in a larger market or a more metropolitan one or a more diverse one. This one seems pretty solidly, you know, whatever the number is, 50, 55 plus or something like that, and they seem to want a certain thing. Now in the digital space, in addition to saying, okay, let's see if we can collect these fractured pieces, I think you can do that. If what we did early on was we seeded responsibility twice. This is where we blew it. And I think, you know, this is one of those times where looking at history is instructive to going forward. The first place we blew it was on the websites. Broadcasters in general decided at the dawn of the internet and websites that they were going to cede responsibility of development to IBS and World Now and all these template services, which didn't allow for any customization, didn't allow us to do anything outside of what was templated for us. And the thought at the time, in my opinion, from the broadcasters, look, we're the 900-pound gorilla in the market, nothing can ever touch us, and they let this slide by, this opportunity. The next opportunity where we blew it was social media, and I know everyone's going, oh, here goes Kevin on social media again. I understand the value of information coming back, but we blew that too. What news swerved into, unfortunately, a social media value because it meant clicks. Okay, people are sharing these stories. That's all the traffic's coming in because people are sharing it. It's either via social media, it's on Facebook or on Twitter. There's something called dark social where they're sharing links to things on email, and it's called dark social because you can't track it. So for news, that's fine.
You can't what?
You can't track it.
Wow.
You can't track it.
Goes to tracking again.
Oh, tracking. Yeah, thank you. Okay. And I get my own tracky for that. So where we blew it in the weather was, and you and I argued about this, James, for a couple of years about whether Facebook was a good platform for people to get weather. And we went back and forth on this, and a couple of years ago you said 2 or 3 times, kind of in a slump, you said, you know what, Facebook is really bad for getting weather information. Now, feeding back stuff to you, yes, I get that, but we could have developed those infrastructures. And so what we did is we legitimized, we legitimized Facebook as a platform for weather information because we put our good information there. And then that enabled other people, the wannabes, the basement forecasters, whatever you want to call them, especially the hype people, that legitimized Facebook as a space for weather information. And so what the end user sees is, okay, well, here goes something on Facebook. It's a legitimate platform. The television stations are using it. Does this mean that I'm missing something? What are they doing? So that's the second place that we missed it. We didn't develop our websites. We haven't developed our own digital platforms with apps and continuous information, and then the opportunity to share as well. Yes, James, you're using all of these, you're using Facebook and Twitter, and you're getting all this content coming into you, which is great, but you can't monetize those things. And at the end of the day, this is a business model. You had the clout to develop your own platforms that said, look, I want your pictures, I want this information from you, come through my vehicle to share it with me, and I'm going to make you famous by putting you on television or whatever I'm going to do. But the state of the industry was not such at that time because people weren't paying attention to enable that stuff. And there have been some opportunities, we've blown them, and now we're caught in this social media part where all you develop some sort of following. Well, that's great, but that following on social media is not helping you other than in as far as visibility. It's not running your business model that pays the bills for these things. We blew it in those areas. I'm kind of starting to wander now, so I should probably stop.
Well, I feel bad now. We blew it. We totally blew it. And I agree.
We did.
Facebook, all of our
did blow
content's
it.
over there. But hey, real quickly, Aubrey, have you got any email by chance?
I'm still working on it.
Okay. Well, we'll give you
Just
some.
gone.
We'll give you like 5 minutes. I know there's a whole bunch of emails, so let's do
All right. Well, she's working. So am I wrong? Am I wrong?
No. I agree. I mean, it now Facebook is where we are getting most of our eyeballs,
Right.
and we can't monetize that directly.
For news.
Right. For almost everything. I mean, most people, their source of information for news and weather, it's their Facebook feed. And
Well, we were having this conversation the other day. You know, if your ratings are down, but you're, putting yourself in a lot of stuff out there on Facebook and social media, are people just going to Facebook and checking out maybe what they think they need to know, and then not even turning on the local news at night? Because we don't, like you said, we don't make any money on Facebook.
Right. And you're working so hard. You get an audience of however many thousands of people you have on your public page or whatnot. But Facebook is actively working against you to keep your distribution somewhere in the 2 to maybe at best 6% range. Well, again, I'm sorry. Even if you plaster a big logo on your forehead, that's not going to support the business model because it's too small a sample, it's too small an audience, and it's not reliable.
Right. So what do we do, Kevin?
Well, I think the only option is to try and take back the platforms that we have, especially the mobile ones. And I don't see that happening. They're automated. The automation, the only place, the internet eats middlemen, okay? And I think what was the point of this discussion from the beginning with Eric was, excuse me, is are we now middlemen, and is the internet going to eat us? Well, it very well may, because that's what the internet does. So we have to add some level of value within those products that we can then monetize. What I learned at TXCN in the early day, we started that thing at the beginning of 1999, and what I watched over a couple of years, and Nate, remind me to, you summarize this comment, remind me to say something that you said to me a while back when I get done with this.
Yeah.
But TXCN was a 24-hour news station. And so where we are now with the local TV news, as James says, nobody needs to wait until 5 o'clock or until we decide that a particular storm is strong or weak enough for us to break into television and make people mad because we're interrupting Dancing with the Stars. That's ridiculous. It makes absolutely no sense. If we want to get into severe weather coverage, we need to open up a stream and leave it go. It doesn't need to be a performance, a continuous performance like they do in Oklahoma City. They've got some resources designated for that. What happens if you put it up, and what happens if nobody says anything for 5 minutes? Okay, well, at least it's there. But at least it's continuous information and people can come to it when they want. We have to put this is the thing. We got to put ourselves in the position of the end user and say, what is it that they are looking for? One of the only things I remember from a consultant was he asked us one time, he said, what do they want from you? And we all said, well, it's accuracy and all the other things that we say. And the actual answer was, they want you to protect them. Now, if we expand that and pull it back out and rewrite it a little bit, they want us to look out for them, meaning they want us to give them information, but they need it when they need it, right? They need to come to an app. If you come to the app, this is partly cloudy 72 in the morning, there's no reason to come to it until the afternoon when it says, clear and 45 tonight. So what I learned at TXCN was it's a continuous flow of information. And we did that, but we did it on social media, right? You have to be there and continuously updating the information on your own platform. So somebody comes and says, okay, I came to this platform on my phone, and it's Kevin's platform, and I came here at 9 o'clock and I got a piece of information. Well, if I come back at 11 o'clock, it better be new. Even if it's on a quiet day, it better be new. There better be something different. Otherwise, there's no reason to come back. And that's the data flow. It's a river of information. This is what Terry Heaton talks about. It's a river of information, and people are dipping in and out of it. So this idea of appointment stuff is just going to fade off into obscurity. But we have to do this continuously, and you have to update it continuously. And the way to do that is to put pressure on the owners and say, and I'm trying this here, is to say, look, we need to get this data stream into the automated thing. But I don't know if that's going to support the business model either. I don't know if these little banner ads at the bottom of an app are enough. I don't know if they're going to generate enough money. I just don't know if they will. But TXEN taught me we have to keep what you have to do is continue the information stream as though there's severe weather without everybody running down the halls with their hair on fire. But you have to continue that data stream 24/7 because you don't know when people are coming to you or why. But there needs to be a fresh piece of information there. And everything that I just said was summarized in 4 words by Nate Johnson a year or 2 ago when we were talking about their website. And the key is that you have to give the appearance, this is Nate's words, not mine, you have to give the appearance that there's a human behind that piece of technology. That's the only way we will survive. Otherwise, we will fade into security. It's not because some people don't want us, it's just not going to support the business model anymore. I'm under the impression that we lose between 5 and at the high end, maybe 15% of the television audience per year, or maybe 15% in this market, maybe as much as 15% over the last 2 years. Now, we can say all day long, well, we're number one, and that's been fine. That's what has sustained it. Number one is still great, and it's the largest audience that you can get for a general advertiser in a market. Right? The furniture store can't go and get 30,000, 20,000, 50,000 people, whatever the number is in your market. They can't find that anywhere else right now. That will be coming. This is where the technology is going to come and get us. But for now, they still can't find a bigger audience. But the audience is getting smaller, and the technology is getting better. So at some point, it reaches the flipping point where you're going to say, look, 20,000 people, who cares? I can go do that somewhere else.
Well, and the catch, too, is that people, television is a broadcasting medium for now, and advertisers who don't want to advertise to everyone can advertise to just a small subset and the eyeballs that they want to see on digital and mobile in a much more granular way than we can do on TV. Now, I'm told that the new ATSC 3.0 standard may have some ways for broadcasters to do that and to direct and target advertising to particular audiences, but I don't know that that's ever going to be as efficient as what we can do on mobile, where on a per website, per hit basis, decide, oh, this person is a 24-year-old female who enjoys skydiving and gardening, and serve her an ad custom for her.
The death knell is going to come. I spoke to a guy who was in charge of the Texas Toyota dealers advertising. He's a Toyota dealer in San Antonio. This was some years ago. But he told me something really interesting. He said 85% of the people who buy a new car do so from a dealer within 5 to 7 miles of their house. So the technology hasn't come along yet for the auto dealers to pinpoint, to draw a 7-mile circle around their dealership and hit those people. But you look at a market like Dallas-Fort Worth, Plano Toyota has no interest in people in Benbrook, which is the complete opposite side of the market. On a traffic day, it would take you 2 hours to drive between that city and the other city. Yeah. And so, but they go to the television station and they're having to pay for the entire market. So the death knell comes when they can draw a circle around their place and say, these are the people that I want. And the automobile sector is a huge component of television. In 2008, I want to say that at Channel 8 in Dallas, the automobile sector accounted for 45% of revenue in 2008 when the crash came. And it panicked them to no end. Diversified since then. I remember standing in a meeting hearing people, oh, well, we've gone, and one salesperson said, just this utter contempt in her voice, said, well, we're even going to, but in her mind triumphantly saying, well, we're even going and getting plumbers to advertise. Well, good for them for going to diversify, because putting 45% of your eggs in one basket was just nuts. But that's going to be taken away from you as new and better opportunities come along.
Hey, guys, we got to stop and do some email here because Aubrey's got to do some television. I got to do some television, and I know we got some email to check out right here.
Letters. We get letters. We get stacks and stacks of letters.
Yeah, we've got a few emails, and the majority of them actually comes from our friend Scott in Massachusetts. So, Scott, thank you for sending in those emails. Oh, give me the town. Haverhill, Massachusetts. So Scott was commenting on some of the episodes. We were talking about the tornadoes, and James was talking about trees and the unfortunate deaths. He was also commenting on the NOAA weather radio, the frequencies, and also on sirens. So thank you, Scott, for sending in there. Just a tad too long to read the entire one on here. So I just want you to know that we got them, and we appreciate your comments.
Scott makes good points. My suggestion for Scott is start your own podcast.
Or become a consultant.
Yeah.
Chris White sent in an email, which I believe is Kevin's pick of the day, or is also Kevin's pick of the day, so we'll talk about that in just a moment. But Chris from Roanoke, Virginia, just down the road from me, we appreciate it. And also Sean Wagner sent in an email regarding some storm chasers and some chasers versus the Weather Service. So thank you very much for sending in those emails. And if you guys have an email, just send it to us, email@weatherbrains.com. Email@weatherbrains.com. So we'd like to know what your thoughts about the show. I'm sure we'll get a lot of thoughts on this show. It was, of course, a broad topic that I think has some very important points to it. So send us your thoughts on the show, the guest suggestions. We'd like to keep those coming in and keep Mr. Bill Murray very busy. And also maybe some show suggestions. So keep those coming up. Email@weatherbrains.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Facebook, because we'll be tracking you.
We are
Tracky.
We are absolutely doing that. Weather roundup quickly. We've had tornadoes in the Great Plains. I know that at least 2 people were killed today by tornadoes, and Rick can give us a full update when he's back on the show next week. But he sent a note wrapping up severe weather, organizing survey teams for tomorrow. Likely a long-track violent tornado in south-central Oklahoma with 2 fatalities. And so, again, it's been a rough day, and we'll find out more about that. And, boy, how many people took pictures of this tornado in Colorado yesterday?
Yeah.
Incredible.
Video. Wow. Ray, Colorado. I mean, videos and pictures all over the place. So it's getting to be the season for the Southern Plains as they're starting to crank up. And what else, Kevin? What's the weather doing out there? It's hot, cold?
Well, this is kind of off topic, but that Colorado thing is funny. I've been playing with a new app called Fresco News, and it is some sort of crowdsourcing thing. They're actually, I think what they're going to do is partner with television stations and try and get they put out what they call assignments. And they'll put out an assignment in a given market, and if you are interested in taking your cell phone and shooting video of this parade or that event or whatever, they'll pay you a little something and then share it amongst their partners. But that tornado struck me because there was a brief story about that tornado and then a picture, a small picture, and you tap on the picture to get the full size. And I obviously wanted to scan around looking at the structure of that storm and so on and so forth. And I got in there, and you get the larger version of the picture, but you can't scroll across it with your finger. They're using the accelerometer in the phone to pan across the picture. And so every little movement in your hand moves the picture around. So if you want to look at the left side, you're supposed to tilt it one way and tilt it. And it was the single most frustrating map experience I've ever had in my life because I wanted to look at a particular part of the storm, and it kept jumping around, and I couldn't make it stop. But it was such a classic example of doing something because you can rather than because you should. And I think that's been a big problem in these apps as well.
Yep. So anyway, we'll have Rick on to talk about it next week.
That wasn't really weather roundup-y, was it?
No, that's okay. That's close enough. I wanted to mention a little piece that I don't think this is technically my pick of the week, but we talked about this on the show not too long ago. And as I did a little more research on the spectrum issue, it's rotten. I mean, this is just a bad situation. The 1675 to 1680 megahertz. The FCC wants to set up a sharing agreement with the wireless broadband industry, these jabronis, which is the same frequency used for direct data from the weather satellites, the GOES satellites, including soon-to-be GOES-R. And the more you read about this, it's just a bad deal. So if you get a chance, maybe send a note to the FCC. They are now seeking public comments out there, and you can go. Maybe you can stick the link to this piece that I did with Marshall Shepard and the Capital Weather Gang about this. But if you get a chance, let your voice be heard on this, because I'm telling you, nothing good can come out of this for the weather enterprise. So having said that, I'm 2 minutes out. I got to go. Nate, take the show. It belongs to you, sir.
All right, let's finish picks of the week. My pick of the week this week is an article in the New Yorker magazine about the fellow that formed the Cloud Appreciation Society. It's a long read, but it's pretty good. It sort of comes at it from an angle of this guy being a bit of a disruptor of the science process. It's a pretty good read. So, Kevin, pick of the week, sir.
This was sent in, I think, as Aubrey said, I can't remember by who, but it's a piece in Science Daily, and it suggests that retweeting makes you forget things.
Google makes you dumb.
I think the premise is that, oh, here's something that I might be interested in. I retweet it, or I tweet it out, and then because I've done that, it is in some space somewhere, and I don't have to think about it anymore, and then you forget.
There you go. All right, Brian Peters, pick of the week.
Yes, I was surfing around looking for some topics and ran across the National Geographic Kids page. And interestingly enough, it was the UK from the United Kingdom, and they had an interesting page on 30 freaky facts about weather. And I just thought it was kind of cool. It's the kind of thing that gets people's juices flowing about the weather. It's kind of unusual things, and it was kind of a neat page.
Good stuff. Aubrey, pick of the week, madam.
My pick of the week is Janice. She's got a new book, Freddy the Frogcaster and the Terrible Tornado. Teaches kids about severe weather safety and how to be prepared and not scared about storms. Good topic, especially on a night like tonight.
Good stuff. I need to point out, by the way, that your anchor at the desk behind you is staring very intently into his phone.
That's Channing. Say hi, Channing.
Breaking news phone. Okay, well, we'll let you get away with that. All right. So let's look at the calendar for the next few weeks. We're booked all the way into mid-August. We've got June, July pretty well full. Next week, Jeff Medlin talking about rip currents. It's folks' schools getting out, folks thinking about summer vacation. A good time to think about that. Rip currents kill people every year in the United States, and they're fairly easy to identify. This is information that could save your life. This is Sweeps, after all. We're here about trying to promote things that could kill you. Jason Seminow with the Capital Weather Gang joins us on a special Tuesday edition of the program on Memorial Day week. That'll be Tuesday the 31st. Steve Piltz from National Weather Service Tulsa on the 6th. Joe Whitty, Dr. James Fleming, James Hucker, and Andrea Melvin from OK First. We'll have a National Weather Association annual meeting update in early July. Kevin Claesel from OU, the emergency preparedness meteorologist there with OU, will be talking about outdoor weather events and a new effort by the American Meteorological Society to get on the record about that. We've got a lot of good stuff coming in the next few weeks, but we still have some holes. For example, the program 2 weeks from now, May 23rd, that program is open. So if you've got a topic idea, send it our way. Also have a couple of holes here and there. And, of course, as we head into late July and August, we'll have some additional openings as well. So if you have any topics, show suggestions, guest suggestions, we get them, we listen to them, and normally by the time I've gotten the email and had a chance to check it, Bill's already responded and lined that guest up for a future week of the program. So send us those. If you have any questions, comments about today's show, or if you have something you'd like to say about the future of weather forecasting, send it to us, and we'll make sure that it gets over to Eric Berger, who is on the program tonight. You can send those to us at email@weatherbrains.com. That's email@weatherbrains.com. You can also find Facebook and Twitter. Brian Peters.
I have something that's not quite breaking news, but since we don't have the song,
So it's not breaking news, it's just in.
After last week's show, the latest edition of Skywritings hit the airwaves, and it was very interesting. We didn't lose a single subscriber after it hit the airwaves. No. Good. As a matter of fact, within the next 12 hours, we gained 5 more. So we've topped 510 on our subscriber list. So just you can find it on weatherbrains.com. You can find how to subscribe to it there very easily.
Good stuff. Yeah, if you haven't checked that out, you can go to weatherbrains.com and subscribe to the newsletter and hear right from us. We don't spam you. It's not a bunch of junk. It's good content stuff. So With that, we will wrap it up. This is WeatherBrains, the All About the Weather podcast. We normally record it on Monday nights at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern Time. It is on the air as well in the Birmingham television market, although it is no longer on the air as it is now past 11 o'clock. But we do have the program every Monday night. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us on Google Hangout. Of course, you can find the show archives. Just go to weatherbrains.com, and everything is there. For everybody here on the crew, James, Kevin, Brian, Aubrey, and our guest Eric Berger, I am Nate Johnson. Good night, and God bless.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, gentlemen.
See you in 2 weeks.
Yep. Take care. Bye.
Hey, guys, that's a wrap. Thank you guys for watching. Fun show tonight. We'll catch you over on, if you're watching this live, we'll catch you over on Song of the Night on my Twitter feed. And we'll see you guys on WeatherBrains next Monday night. Have a great week. Bye-bye.